Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be going over 6 of my tips for newer players to Genshin, or people who are just now hitting the mid-game. But even if you've been playing for a long time, there is some pretty good information in here. So you might want to stick around anyway, just to see if there's anything you can learn. There's probably at least 1 or 2 things that you can learn. So I've got 6 things in total, but they're more broad concepts than they are specific tips. So let's talk about the first thing, which is all about wishing. So when you're going to wish for a character, it's very important that, in my opinion, you at least wait to have a decent amount of gems before you go for a character, like somewhere in the range of 10k, something about that, so that you at least have a semi-decent chance of getting said character, and you aren't just spending your gems as you get them. Um, my general personal recommendation also is to kind of, however nice it would be to get some of the 4 stars on the banner, that you should mainly be chasing 5 stars on banners. As they are generally not necessarily better units, but the 4 stars you will generally acquire eventually throughout your gameplay versus the 5 star, which is kind of the much more harder and much more limited. Um, at the very least, if you do roll for a 4 star character, you should be careful as you approach pity. So there's after about 90 rolls, you're guaranteed a 5 star. And if you lose the 50-50, so if you don't get the character that's featured on the banner, then the next time you get a 5 star, it's guaranteed to be that character. So definitely, if you lose a 50-50, you shouldn't be rolling on a banner unless you want to get the 5 star. A couple other tips just in general about the banner is that you generally want to do 10 pulls until about 70, because there's a soft pity at about 70 where your chance to get a 5 star increases dramatically. This isn't actually mentioned anywhere in the uh, the information here, but over time people have essentially figured it out. Um, some other tips on the other banners: the weapon banner is a huge no-no unless you are willing to chuck money at it until you get the weapon. I would definitely avoid this banner, as you have a lot of semi-decent options available in game, and it's generally too expensive for the minimal increase. Also, they tend to rarely put 2 good weapons together, so that makes it very unenticing to go for. And kind of the last thing is, I wouldn't recommend spending primos on the standard banner unless you're really close to 5 star biddy and you want to do a couple pulls to get a character. That's completely fine. But in general, the standard banner doesn't really give you a chance to get anything except, well, you do technically have a chance to get weapons, which you don't on the limited banner. But because the pool is so diluted, there's 15 different 5 stars, I believe, you can get on this banner. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, 15. 15 different weapons you can get on this banner. So, or 15 different 5 stars. So, rolling on this banner to try to get specific 5 star is really rough and really inconsistent. So let's go on to the second tip, which is actually going to be about spending resources and characters. So early on in the game, you're essentially going to be given a lot of resources, but eventually this does start to slow down and dry up. So in my personal recommendation, you should stick with leveling 1 team in the beginning. Personally, I recommend about 2 units. Generally, whoever your main DPS is going to be. So for me, this would be Beto, and then generally you would do your sub DPS, who is like your main supportive character. But I'm leveling Venti because of how strong of a unit he is instead. But generally, you don't want to spread yourself out too wide, and you don't want to waste kind of those free resources they've been given to you, as they make the beginning of the game quite a bit easier. So yeah, generally just focus on 2 characters, 2 weapons, and their talents. Um, that's kind of my my personal recommendation. And then after you finish, your 2 units up, then you can, finish the rest of your team. And after you finish your first team, then eventually later in the game, you can look to get second and third teams, or whatever else you want. Um, Personally, my kind of level of investment recommendation for most characters eventually is you should be trying to get characters to 60 of 70 so that you can unlock this last ability down here, as this is generally a semi decent increase in power for a lot of different characters. Um, so yeah, I would try to get that, and then also try to get a level 70 weapon, as those aren't too expensive either. I don't have a level 70 weapon on this account because I'm not high enough level, but and level 6 talents. Noted your support characters might not need auto attacks, like Venti doesn't need his auto attack leveled because he doesn't have a mechanic that wants me to use his auto attack as a support unit. But there are some support units who might have a reason to level their auto attacks because of things they trigger. This is more of a case by case basis. Um, that you're just gonna have to either watch a guide or figure out for yourself. But in general, your supports only need to level their burst and ultimate, or their burst and skill. Uh, and generally, your end goal should be to get about plus 12 or plus 16 gold artifacts on most of your support characters. This is kind of the minimum level of investment that I would consider um, on most characters. Obviously, I'm too low in adventure rank, so I don't have gold artifacts, but this is generally not too hard to get. Um, and once a character reaches, that point that I mentioned, 60 of 70, 70 weapons, 6 talents, and plus 12 or plus 16 gold artifacts, then you can look to level your other characters. Um, and doing it this way will make sure you don't hit a situation where you have a whole bunch of characters that are kind of mid, not super powerful themselves. And also, it'll help you make your free resources that you get go a longer way. Uh, Alright, so here for our third tip, we're going to be talking about materials and resources. And this is just kind of my general personal advice, but I think you shouldn't hoard materials that are relatively easy to obtain. You should use them to get power to make the game easier for you if you need to, or to increase your characters. So, like for example, here I have a lot of books that I probably should use to level up other characters on this account to make them a little better. The main ones that I think are important to use that a lot of people might be saving or hoarding a bit too much are stuff like your weekly boss materials here. Uh, these can be used to level up talents past level 6. Let me get to a character who's level 6 talent. And depending on the talent, you can get quite a bit more value from the ability. So even though these things are kind of weakly locked, eventually you will just get tons of them. And there also is another item that can be used to convert uh, this stuff here. This can be used to convert boss drops into other boss drops from the same boss. So don't be afraid to spend stuff like this. Don't be afraid to spend your Mora, spend your Ascension level materials, these stuff here. You can always farm it, and oftentimes it's worth getting the extra character power from like a level 90 weapon, or getting your talents up on characters who have very important talents, stuff like that. Um, Now, obviously, there are a couple things that go into this, like, I could level up Bennett, but I don't have. I could probably make some of these, but sometimes you won't have enough of these chunks here, and if your priority is to work on artifacts or stuff like that, because you still need them, that could be a better use of resources. But the main thing here is just that don't be afraid to spend stuff like your weekly boss mats and stuff like Dream Solvent. I definitely, on my main account, held on to them for way long into the game, where I could have had so much stronger characters and had so much more enjoyable of a time in the game just by using the resources I have. Like, look, I've got like 600 purple books. I can level plenty of characters to get a little bit extra power and stuff. It's not an issue. And over the time playing this game, you will just end up with quite a bit of resources. However, this being said, my fourth tip is essentially do not do this with prototypes. Prototypes are worth their weight in gold. These things are rarer than all hell. Um, I played this account. I've done weekly bosses on this account for maybe 4 or 5 months total, and I have two of these are from an event. This is from an event. This is one of these is from an event. Like two of these are from an event, and like two of these are from a quest. So I've literally only gotten like 2, 3, 4 prototypes, and I've used one prototype. So my personal recommendation with prototypes is use them if you need weapons. You know, if you need a great sword for a character or anything like that. But I would be cautious about using them to make refinements, um, as even though it can be nice to get a refinement on some of these weapons as their effects get stronger. For a lot of us, especially if you're on a more limited weapon budget, um, it can be better just to save uh, and use it on a weapon for another character or for weapons that come in the future. This is another sub tip of this with prototypes is that you need to, I highly recommend looking up what weapons can be crafted with prototypes, because a lot of prototype, or not a lot, but about half of the prototype weapons you can't see from the beginning of the game. So like, for example, I have the Snow Tomb Star Silver. You wouldn't know this existed if you didn't look it up, because this isn't unlocked by default. Same thing with this Frost Bear here. There's more weapons. There's like a whole set of weapons. There's like, 8 or 9 weapons that are not available from the start for you to see to craft. So it's very important that you go to an outside resource and look at all the weapons that are available. Also, it's worth holding on to these and not refining stuff just because in the future, um, we could obviously, more crafted weapons are going to get released, and because of how hard it is to obtain these things, um, it's a good idea to have, maybe at least one of each ready just in case you need it. Now, obviously, if you need to make a weapon for a character, or if you need, or if you think you need a refinement for a main carry to push you over in power level, do it. But my general personal recommendations is stuff like crowns, which feel limited, but we kind of have been consistently been getting a crown each patch at least. Where are the crowns? Go down here. Yeah, these we can get one each patch roughly. Even a couple more. Like you can get like 2 from the tree, and some other events. So you generally get at least one of these each patch, so we know consistently how you can get them. Stuff like weekly boss mats you can get pretty consistently, as well as Dream Solvent to fix these issues. The prototypes, on the other hand, have no consistency in their drop. These these things are literally like rarer than 5-star characters. Like that, it's crazy how rare these things are. So I would be at the very least careful with spending your prototype weapons on refinements, especially, but without double checking all the options you have available to you that you might have to unlock through a quest or through something like that. Now, tip number 5 is that you should subscribe and like my YouTube channel and come check out the Twitch streams over at twitch.tv/gaggledan. I'm kidding. Number 5 is actually got to do with tip number 5 has got to do with fragile resin and resin efficiency. So I'm gonna probably make a whole detail or a whole new separate video detailing resin efficiency and how you should be using your resin as you um, progress through the game. That's probably gonna be the next video I make. But the long and short of it is just that you want to, before you are AR-45, or at AR-45, excuse me, you unlock the guaranteed drop of gold artifacts from artifact domains. So essentially, pre-45, you just want to make sure that you are doing literally all your other stuff you think you need. So stuff like bosses, for ascension mats, stuff like books for talent materials, stuff like weapon mats for weapon materials, or even ley lines for Mora and XP. you just want to get those out of the way before you unlock the ability to do artifacts, because realistically, once you have artifacts, that's all you're going to be doing for a bit, or that's all you're going to want to do for a bit, because it's a huge power increase having access to uh, these now gold artifacts and having access to their powerful set effects. In this similar vein, I personally would recommend against spending your fragile resin until you are AR-45 to be able to get artifacts, as as soon as you're AR-45 now, you need artifacts for a minimum of 4 characters now. Even if you're relatively lucky, you're talking about 1 or 2 thousand resin. 5 or 6 days of resin for each character, even if you're being pretty copium with what you're going to keep. So, and my personal recommendation, just keep these. Don't worry about how speeding through the game to get 45. That's one. We have a lot more quests now in the game and everything, so you should be able to get 45 a lot without having to spend a lot of your fragile resin. There's tons of different quests and everything you can do, hangout events, the whole 9 yards. But yeah, look out for that video. Probably in the next 2 or 3 days here. I'm gonna script it out, finish editing this, and then probably gonna start working on that. And my 6th thing is something that's a little it's a little vague, but it's try to keep up with Upkeep. So there's a lot of little things you can do in this game that makes your progression smoother, or just fun side activities. The main ones that I would personally recommend is artifacts. So there's a lot of open world artifact spawns every day, and you can actually do, just run to these things and interact with the the just the glowing thing to get artifacts every day, and this will build up artifact XP slowly over time, so that you don't have to, so that you can level up your artifacts easier. See, just hit this, and I'll probably do a video on my artifact route, but there's much better ones out there. But the TLDR is just mark where a lot of the artifact spawns every day, and then just kind of run around and grab them. They respawn about every day. There are tons of other side activities that are important in this game if you want to be consistent with your progression and smooth it over as quickly as possible. One kind of semi-specific one that just came into the game recently is fishing. Through fishing, you get fish like these golden koi, these rusty koi, and then some other fish. And if you take the fish over to an NPC here in Leeway, they will sell you essentially a weapon that is a very strong weapon for a lot of spear support characters, and especially as a lower budget, free to play player, it's a very solid weapon for characters like Zhongling, who are insanely powerful. And the fact that you can get all 5 refinements of it is absolutely great. This weapon here, the catch, very solid weapon. Other things that I would consider in this category is stuff like your teapot, making sure you go to your teapot every day, and picking up your what are they called? They're like silver coins. Yeah, they're like silver coins. Making sure you're crafting stuff to slowly level up your teapot. Get this teapot level up for primos, for some free primos. But also, because one of the main reasons that kind of keeping up with your teapot is good is because of this. You can buy extra 60 resin every week from the shop, but you can also buy some other stuff, some artifact XP, some more stuff like that. So even if you just get it to a point where you can purchase this resin every week, if you do not care about the teapot system at all, I recommend, at least getting to a point where you can just purchase this resin every week, because more resin is always good. Obviously, as well, stuff like Battle Pass, as your Battle Pass will give you a lot of free rewards. There's also, if you talk to each of the smiths every day, you can get locations for magical crystal ores. Um, or this will spawn essentially crystal ores all over the map. It respawns it once every day whenever you talk to them. And you just hit here, you ask about the mining products. You might have to be a certain adventure rank to unlock this feature, but once you essentially click through the dialogue, it's going to mark where a whole bunch of rocks are going to spawn on the map, and you can go get crystal ore from there and use that to everyday craft weapon enhancement mats, so you don't have to spend resin getting weapon enhancement mats. Um, there's a ton of other little things too, such as there's the Paralytic Transformer, this thing that's dropped from a quest. That essentially, you just hit it a lot after putting materials in it, and it'll give you some free stuff. Personally, what I use for it and what I recommend is, it doesn't necessarily give you the best rewards, but since it's an absolutely awful idea to use these magical crystal chunks to actually like make stuff, I personally just poured them all in my transformer, because you get a ton of these things. So, and then use these to make stuff as they don't cost resin. There's also reputation in this game. Every city has reputation, and I'm sorry, this tip is like 15 things, but it's important stuff. It's all important stuff to do. There's reputation, and all these reputation stuff give you little free things such as like recipes or these things that help you find the oculus of the zone. Stuff like this is a stove you can take out anytime you want. This helps you find treasure in the area, which can be useful for getting more materials, a little bit more primos, 100%ing the zones, all that kind of stuff. And finally, you get wings, which are just a nice, cool little cosmetic. But doing that every week is important because it is weekly locked. There's also a very similar thing with the tree in Dragon Spine, and that essentially, I think it's 2 times a week you can go and collect, do like Dragon Spine dailies. I'm sorry, I have my max tree on both my 2 main accounts I play, and my other one's too low for me to check to show it off. But the TLDR is you go and you collect things, and you can level up this tree, and you'll get rewards like wishes, adventure rank XP, a polearm prototype, some wings, a crown. And that's double weekly. I think it's Monday and Friday are the reset. And the last kind of maintenance thing is just try to do events when you can. Like we have an event going on right now so the event page, I got some beef with this, but the event page itself actually isn't super good because a lot of these things aren't actually events. Like this here, this is just a boss. This isn't an event. Like this is a permanent addition to the game. It's still staying here. So just make sure you're doing your test runs for your free materials. If there's a login reward, get it. But the big thing is, even if you're not going to do every event, because sometimes events only give primos, sometimes events only give like some little bit currency. So if you're not super hardcore, I at least recommend you should do the events that give you free weapons. Can I see this still, even though I've finished it? I apologize. I think it's here. Yeah, okay. So the event we have going on right now gives you a claymore that it has a semi-decent effect on it. But the main reason this is nice is because obviously it's a free weapon. Over the course of the event, we almost always get all the refines, so we get the max power out of it. And during the event, I should have kept mine on level so I could show you, but during the event, it's actually cheaper to level. Okay, you can see up here, it seems you get 1.5 XP by upgrading it during the event. So it's actually relatively cheap to upgrade this thing and get it to a decent level. And to our knowledge, a lot of these weapons from events, they don't come back. Like, we haven't gotten any of them back yet. Like, this is the one from the first event, the Festering Desire. This weapon hasn't come back. So I very much recommend that if an event is out, to get the weapon and level it up. Personally, I would take it as high as you can. If you can take it to 90, take it to 90. Even if you don't necessarily think you have a use for it, because it's going to save you that much in the long run. So I think that's the end of Upkeep. Sorry that this one was a little bit scatterbrained. This is just like essentially just making sure you do your chores. You don't have to do all of them. They're just nice, you know. Sometimes I don't do some of them. Sometimes I do all of them. If you had to ask me what the priority ones are, I think stuff like reputation, um, events, and like your teapot, stuff that's more like takes a little effort or is more of a weekly thing is definitely worth doing. The fishing for the spear is definitely worth it. And the artifacts and magic crystal are more up to like your playtime and how much you actually want to spend. But I hope you found at least one of these tips helpful. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.